Let's quickly move on to the next bit, which is why do we do social research at all? Um, Anyone would like to say why? No? Why do we do social research? Something in the chat box. To understand human motivations, yeah. So a lot of times, social research has so far, at least until the 1980s, and even now, has been dominated by biologists. And because you come from a particular kind of training, you might not be able to grasp or understand the social nuances the way a social scientist might. And this is not to create disciplinary barriers between biology and sociology. I have a very multidisciplinary sort of a background going from humanities to social sciences. But a lot of conservation is dominated by biologists who think they understand society, and the goal of most people has been to conserve species, and everything else has sort of been secondary to that. So, social research sort of takes the center stage only since the 1980s, where people realize that no, if we don't know how societies function, we can't possibly influence any changes. We can't bring about any kinds of changes. Conservation, like Daniel says, without taking local people into account is useless. Krishna Thapa Magar says, explore almost all areas of human behavior to gain a greater understanding of individuals. Yeah. So it works at the level of the individual, a group, a society, a particular, community. It could be anything. But it's important to know who you're talking to, what their motivations are, why do they do the things they do, if you have to have any kind of impact. A lot of the environmental drivers that we talk about today are social in nature, if you think about it. It could be infrastructure development, it could be both positive and negative drivers. Any kind of social change directly affects nature conservation, directly affects people's well-being. So the drivers are social in nature. So if you're talking about conservation, it's important to have or take account of the social dimension. And it's also important to monitor these changes over time. So these are sort of the reasons why social research is employed. Now let's move on to Huber 2012. This is one of my favorite papers from the Changtang Plateau in Tibet. So I have a couple of questions. Please feel free to unmute your mics and share your responses. So what does this paper talk about? Let's start with that. What is the paper about? I'm not giving you a summary this time. I'm just going to ask you questions. What does Huber say? What does Tony Huber say? Reasons for local hunting. Okay, so the paper is about hunting. How many of you have read the paper? Community's view of using wild animals. That's okay, Justine. It's understandable. Okay, all right. So essentially, Tony Huber, who spent a lot of time in the Changtang Plateau and in Tibet in general, talks about the role of hunting and the relationship between various aspects, between the socio-economic transitions, the cultural transitions that happen in this area, how religion influences attitudes towards hunting, or how religious influences attitudes towards wildlife. Those were sort of the kind of the predominant themes in this paper. Helena says intersection of and changing roles of hunting, domestic livestock, and conservation. So what are the time periods that he talks about? Could anyone can answer this? What are the time periods that Tony Huber talks about? Let's open the paper and let's go back. He talks about a pre-modern kind of a time period, and then he kind of goes to the 1960s and the 80s. where what happened in the 1960s and the 80s? Did anything change in China, in Tibet in the 1960s, between 60s and 80s? No? Anyway, these were the first few decades of Chinese communism. Especially its impact in the Changtang was deeply felt. And what happened was hunting was collectivized. So earlier, a lot of it was decentralized. People from different plains, different regions of Tibet would in China, the crackdown on poaching. Well, it was not a crackdown on poaching. This was basically the Chinese communism coming to power, and a lot of changes happened. Like I was saying, hunting was collectivized. What do we mean by collectivized? What exactly happened? Basically, the state, because of the state intervention, people were kind of grouped together into hunting brigades. Yeah, there was change in the political scenario, like if Tikar Ali says. So essentially, these hunting brigades were even specialized. So depending on the method they used for hunting. So if they employed dogs, they were called dog hunting brigade. They employed, if they specialized in hunting for blue sheep or Tibetan argali, they were called stalking brigade. So essentially, the state intervened and formed these brigades in order to expedite hunting. And in this period, the levels of hunting increased by 10 times because of this collectivization. Now, the local subsistence hunting pattern in the pre-modern economic mainstay was at the level of the individual household. Here, it was a group of people coming together. And the brigade actually earlier never killed anything more than half a dozen game animals per week, which by 1970s became 10 times that number. Eliana says, and then they were encouraged to take as many animals as possible. Exactly. So this went on and on. Can someone tell me a little bit about what role gender played in this? What was the role of women in these hunting brigades? If you guys have read the paper. Women had no role. Why is it that they had no role?
Aren't they considered like bad luck? Like if you went hunting with the men or if you touched their hunting tools,
Right.
you would like curse their hunting expeditions and they'd have to do certain things to like cleanse it.
Right, exactly. So yeah, so what happened is, so there are multiple dimensions. The way women were incorporated into this was very different from the way men were included in this enterprise. There were lots of taboos, and the taboos also broke down depending on which era we talk about. So after the 1960s and the 80s, there was an advent of commercial hunting. And this is when the state sort of encouraged them to hunt as many animals as possible. So it was no longer subsistence hunting, it became commercial hunting. And they were given rifles and machine guns and things like that in order to hunt. So the levels of hunting really boomed, especially hunting of, say, Tibetan gazelle, which was a prized commodity. So this paper actually employs various methods. Karan Gurung says women were busy in their household activities. Exactly, yeah. So this paper is very interesting because it employs multiple research methods, going from ethnographic information, looking at, archival kind of material like books by Sven Hedden, to talking to people, to having, interactions with them, both personal observations as well as interviews. So it's a nice mix and a very qualitative approach to the question of hunting in Tibet. And the other thing that it lays down, apart from the history of hunting over time, is also the role between religion, which is the organized religion, or say Buddhism in this landscape, versus the cultural practices and taboos that existed beyond and outside of Buddhism and hunting. So what does Huber say? What is the relationship between religion and hunting in these landscapes? Because if you assume that Buddhism preaches non-violence and compassion, etc., etc., and therefore Buddhist, if you're a Buddhist, you will not hunt. Is that really true for this landscape or for the people here? And if not, why isn't it true for these people? Okay. Yes, snow leopards are worshipped in mountain areas in Nepal. Okay, right. Thanks, Karan. But what we are talking about is this particular paper by Tony Huber, which talks about Tibet. And yes, we will come to your personal experiences in a short while. Basically, what Huber says is the relationship between religion and hunting is very complicated. It's not so straightforward. And the reason why we need to know these nuances is, see, just look at a particular time period that we are talking about. So many things have changed vis-a-vis hunting. So many different factors come into play: the economics, the cultural, the societal, the political changes. All of it has an influence on conservation or the status of biodiversity or what have you in these landscapes. Right? There is also the element of retaliatory killing that he brings in, which might be at a very surface level in contradiction to what, say, the religion you subscribe to preaches, but it's also a lived reality of this landscape. So it's very easy for us to say that just because a person is a Buddhist or a person subscribes to one particular kind of religion that preaches non-violence, we assume that that person will have person's actions will be in consonance with their values. It may not be so, because there are several factors that come into play. And this is where we kind of take a quick break just to kind of regroup, talk about our field experiences. Have you observed these kinds of transitions and changes where you work? What has been your thoughts around the social, political changes, or any kind of cultural observations about people's values? Like Karan, I think, just mentioned that snow leopards are worshipped in Nepal. What about the rest of you? Would you like to share something? Okay, let me tell you a little bit about my research, and then maybe we can all pitch in a little bit. So basically, I work in Ladakh, which is in northwest India. And what I was trying to look at was, what are the different kinds of values associated with the snow leopard versus the ibex versus the wolf? Does it change depending on whether it's a game species versus whether it's a carnivore? And it was very interesting to find that people had very different relationships with all kinds of carnivores and herbivores. So the ibex was largely associated with positive symbolism, whereas the snow leopard and the wolf were associated a lot with negativism, a lot of negative symbolism. They were disliked because they had often attacked people's livestock. But it was not as simple as that, because the snow leopards were also worshipped. The wolves were considered vehicles of the deities. So there was this entire spectrum going from very negative to very positive within people's value systems. Um, Ghulam Muhammad says, in old age, hunters did not kill snow leopards. Why was that, Ghulam? Why did people not kill snow leopards in the olden days, and what has changed now?
Yeah, basically, bas- basically they believe that if they hunt a snow leopard, then they won't have like a hunt of ibex and other like animals. So this is
Okay,
kind of culturally adopted by the hunters. I
okay.
just came to know from a hunter. He said we don't kill a snow leopard, and I said why? Then he said because if they kill a snow leopard, then they don't find a hunt of ibex kind of things. It's a kind of
Wow,
myth, and yeah,
that's interesting.
but it
Are
was in
there,
old practices.
okay, and people don't really believe in that anymore?
Now just nowadays I don't know, but old hunter he told me it's kind
Okay,
of ethics.
okay,
Even in our area, some ethics that they don't kill a female ibex, and also a kind of because in old ages we had to have hunting, collective hunting. Some
Okay.
people, they, because that time we had plenty of ibex kind of things.
Okay.
Collective hunting, we used to call it it was traditionally used to for our rajas kind of things. Now the modern technology, now we have introduced like trophy hunting. It's kind of people come from down, they hunt a old ibex, but the community also protecting the animals from their own. So it's totally, it has changed basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Iftikhar, would you like to unmute and tell us a little bit about Kargil, or what questions you have? How much is awareness good for conservation? I've come I've come across various myths and misconceptions that are in fact beneficial for wildlife. In fact, excess of awareness may change some of their positive beliefs. Would you like to elaborate on that? That's a very interesting point that you bring in, actually.
Hello, yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, so when I was doing field surveys it was during 2015, and I have I got a very good chance to interact with local people, like sharing their culture, belief, like in the field. So I came across various myths that are like in their culture, that are in fact like beneficial for wildlife conservation. For example, in some villages which are like very far from the main town areas, they believe that killing of ibex somehow they possesses a spirit. If someone kills ibex, the whole family or the whole village is haunted by the spirit of ibex for a longer time. So they usually avoid killing ibexes. So yeah, my question is like, if we aware those people more and more about wildlife conservation, about the latest approaches and all that, I believe that somehow this type of myths can be like uh, can be gone. Like it may get over, and those kinds of good belief, like all beliefs are not good, like all myths and misconceptions are not good. I won't say that, but such kind of beliefs, there are lots of other beliefs also which are in fact good for wildlife conservation. So yeah, it's a general question, like how much awareness we should give, like we should provide to the local communities, like because if we give excess of awareness, these kind of good beliefs can like vanish from the society. So yeah, that's just a general question.
Thank you. Would anyone like to respond to that? That was a very fascinating question, actually. Something I've also been thinking a lot about. Would
Yes,
anyone
allow
like to
me
respond? Go first.
may I speak to Iftikhar.
Please.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting, and thanks for sharing, Iftikhar. I think how we discussed during our community-based conservation sessions or modules, it is really interesting, and for us, it should be something to really consider before entering to a new community to study or research. I think first of all, we really need to understand to how we can be a good or active listener, first of all, before any judgment or anything. So by being an active listener, we really can understand and feel what are they talking about, or also what are the common interest or whatever. So, but I think in this case, we actually don't have to consider to raise any kind of awareness among local communities in relation to, okay, what are you saying is totally wrong because it's a myth or whatever, it's not true, you can't prove it scientifically or whatever, because that sometimes, I think, it's just my opinion, that really doesn't matter that what we are saying. because they used to live like that, and they always have something about their beliefs or any spiritual or religious beliefs, which is really important to them to practice them. So we are not there actually to change whatever they think or believe. We might just listen to those reasons and beliefs and be conscious about what we are doing there, and not just trying to think that, okay, we really should work on these kind of beliefs to change them to something else. Because that's not our job to do in so many cases. We are just there to understand the issues and try to link any relation between biodiversity conservation, how we can improve their livelihoods or whatever. So I think it's not something necessary to consider and always think that, okay, we really should work on that and change it.
Okay, thanks, Nilofer.
Yeah, I would like to add something to that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you said that like we should not consider that, but I think our today's session is about the social conservation and all that. So whenever we go to field, the first thing that we come across is the local community. Okay, so and yeah, we know that as a conservation organization, we are meant to do something like about studying the ecology of the animal and conserving the landscape and all that. But
Yeah.
I have you name it, like there are lots of even every wildlife conservation organization, they're just whenever I see they are doing some conservation programs and all that, it's all about awareness only. Like they are awareing the local people to conserve the wildlife, and they are educating them about the wild animals and all that. So yeah, in fact, my main question is like, if we go through like awareing those people at some extent, that they are losing the local myths, the cultural myths, which are in fact beneficial for the conservation of wildlife. Yeah, I know that, like if you are going to estimate, for example, if you're going to the field to estimate the snow leopard population, yeah, you will be going there and doing the camera traps and all that. But the main thing is you have to go through the local community, and the people there will ask, and it's their duty, or like it's there, like they will come to you and ask, what are you doing, what are the works that you are doing, this all kind of stuff. And the main thing is, like, you have to go through the local community. So there are lots of almost every wildlife conservation is talking about awareness and all awareness. So like it was just a question, like in fact, there are places in Kargil where they have stopped believing in such myths, like the myths that I talked about, like killing of ibex will ruin the whole village. If you kill one ibex, the spirit of the ibex will haunt the whole village. So in some places, these myths are already gone due to our awareness. So like
Is
that's
there
why there are
anyone
like.
here who finds the term awareness problematic?
It's just a general question, like how,
Sure.
at
Thanks,
what
Aftika.
extent,
That was actually, yes, that was a great question, but I only have a counter. That is the word awareness and education problematic? Or are these the right words to use when we do conservation?
My
I
question
was
is not
wondering.
being it problematic, but at to how extent should we go, like to preserve the local myths and which are benefit to the.
Sure.
Yeah,
Who
I'm not
else?
saying it's problematic. So.
Who else would like to add to that?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Saloni. And what Iftikhar is sharing is also really considerable in with this regard. I think we can actually reconsider or review some of the aspects of conservation that we used to do for even so many years, because things are changing, and this is a very context specific issue. everywhere we face, different cultures, beliefs, and there are so many different people. And when it comes to working with people, we really need to understand that everything is changing so fast. So I think with regards to awareness raising or education or whatever we call it, um, we really can consider them as a confirmed fact that wherever we go, we need to use one of these, techniques or methods, because our role is to increase the awareness among local communities, or we should educate them or whatever. It's sometimes actually, I was just thinking that it sometimes really lead so many of us to, become to maybe practice some being not, I just can't find a proper word to describe that, but it's just divide us from local communities, because it's not a bottom-up approach. We think that we know more than them, so we should go there and educate them to live better or become better or change their behavior. And they are always asking that, why should we do that? What's the reason behind that? So I think maybe it's the time to sometimes evaluate ourselves or all the approach that we think we should do among local communities.
Sandy, you have anything to add to that?
I want to share something about Centenarian area. I think I totally agree about our discussion that we are not only to educate and raise the awareness of the local people, because we need to understand what are they thinking and what their logic of using the natural resource and their customs and the culture. For example, in Tibetan area, the Tibetan Buddhism ask people to respect every life, and they think like they use the least animals they can to preserve more animals. And they think because they worship the mountains and the lakes, so they think, oh, that is a holy mountain, holy lakes. So in that area, we can not hunt, and we respect the animals there. So when we go to do conservation there, we need to understand what are their logic of doing things, and why they conserve the wildlife here, and why they use other natural resources there. And that's why we can design our own strategy of conservation. It's not only to educate them, to raise the awareness for all of the species. For example, maybe in Changtang area and in Sanjiangyuan area, we did a study that we find the local worship of the mountains actually conserves the snow leopard there, because the holy mountains are the habitat of the snow leopard. It's just, very fragile mountains, alpine area that also overlap with the very important species. I think that's also a wisdom of the sustainability of local culture. That's why they can sustain the ecosystem there for thousands of years. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. These are some very, very interesting discussions, and there are lots of excellent comments in the chat. So please go through them later. Unfortunately, we don't have time to address all of them, but we will circle back to this idea of education and awareness, and how much of it should be communication versus awareness / education. And understanding motivations of why people do what they do is a great starting point. And there are a lot of moral issues with, like Iftikhar was saying, taking only the good sides of a cultural belief and leaving the rest. It is a moral conundrum, and I'd recommend a paper by Amy Dickman. I will send it across to you, which talks about this, and we can kind of have that discussion in the succeeding classes. Anyway, unfortunately, since we are short on time, let's move to the next bit, which is the Breakout Session. I really hope you guys have watched the movie. It was a fantastic movie, and Stenson Dorje, who's a filmmaker from Ladakh, kindly gave us permission to screen it. It's going to be taken down as soon as the session is over because we have limited kind of permission for this to screen this. Please don't download it and please don't share it outside this team if possible. So what we will do now is we'll kind of break you up into groups and assign sort of a team leader to facilitate the discussion. Please do participate, don't feel shy and kind of talk about what this film, what are the main themes in the film? How have elements of social research, if not social research, how could one do social research around a theme like this? Why would it be important? And then we can regroup after say about 10 minutes. So Ranjini will split us up into groups. Ranj, are you around?
Yeah, I'm here, Sal. Just one sec. I'm just making the groups. So
And feel free to, sorry Ranj, sorry to cut you. Feel free to kind of discuss your field experiences, but you have only 10 minutes. So please give everyone in the group a chance to talk. Talk about mainly the film, but also in your landscapes, are there shared realities? Are there kind of things, lessons that can be exchanged, etc.? Yeah, Ranj.
So I've made the group. So in breakout room 1, we have Adnan, Aliana, Elmera, Lecho, and Mohammed. So if one of you could perhaps be, like not the moderator, but kind of take notes and make sure, like, you're in charge of making sure everyone talks, like a leader, right? So who should? Okay, Aliana. So Aliana, in breakout group 1, could you just direct the conversation a little bit, like what we had been doing for the other breakout sessions? So in breakout, yeah, so just like make note of, the discussion points that come up, but also like make sure everyone's talking. So Aliana, in breakout group 1, you're the leader. In breakout group 2, we have Anu, Choki, Krishna, Nilofer, and Raza. So perhaps in breakout room 2, Choki could be in charge and just take a note of the discussion that's happening. In breakout room 3, we have Danielle, Emmanuel, Gulam, Helena, and Iftikhar. So perhaps in this room, Danielle could be in charge, and we'll just rotate it around for the breakout rooms next time as well. It just makes it easier if someone's in moderating the session a bit in each of these rooms. And breakout room 4, we have Jen, Vidyaman, Xingying, Zalmai. And Jen, could you perhaps be the moderator in this group? So I'm just going to open out the room. And Sal, how long? It's 15 minutes.
We have about 10 minutes to discuss. And then how many groups are there? 6, right?
Four.
4 groups, okay. And we have about 5 to 7 minutes per group to present.
Okay, fine. So what did they discuss again?
So basically a little bit about the movie. What were the themes? Was there something about the movie that struck them? Are there similar experiences from their field sites or where they have worked before, which they would like to share? And especially focus on, why something like social research would be relevant in a context like this. This movie is not about social research, but why would social research be important to kind of capture, and how can we capture these dimensions through social research? So just some kind of things.
And to add to the point, the film is set in Ladakh, right? So it's set with the backdrop of depredation happening in this landscape, with the backdrop of shepherds, especially sharing space with livestock, and not livestock, with wild carnivores. And a lot of these interactions happen at that interface between livestock and wild carnivores, but also what are the kind of relationships that we see emerging between people and livestock as well, and how does that translate into perhaps our understanding of wild carnivores. So maybe we can contextualize the film a little bit in relation to snow leopard conservation as well, right? So what are the kind of themes that come out? Maybe what helped you move, or maybe influenced your understanding of perhaps depredation in the landscape or retaliatory killing in the landscape, or just, themes that we can draw between snow leopard conservation, what we talk about, and the movie and the social setting within the picture, right? So we're just going to open up the rooms, and and maybe I'll let you know when it's 2 minutes in. So yeah, we're opening up the rooms, and see you guys soon. Oh, sorry, Justine, I didn't give you a room. Shall I give you a room?
I didn't even get the notification that we were going to rooms. There's something very
No,
wrong here.
everyone.
All of us are in one room.
No, Rax, everyone else is in groups. I didn't put the 3 of us in groups, but I can assign you. Justine, I'm assigning you to
No, that's okay. Yeah, but I'm just saying I didn't see the notification. Oh, Justine is saying no, something, sorry.
I'm putting on group 3. Raki, I've assigned you to group 2.
Is
Okay, so
Vidyaman
Vidyaman
Thapa?
is with us here.
Yeah.
Oh, Vidyaman, he can join the group. Like, he'll get a sign that says, I'm going to move him to breakout room. Okay, so he's in 4. He would have got a sign that says you can join, and he can just click on that.
Vidya, did you hear that?
He's not there.
Vidya? Okay. Sorry, Justine, I can't hear what you're saying. Okay, Vidya's gone.
He's joined.
Okay, fine. Okay.
I can see Justine Shanti Alexander has not.
Yeah, talking but can't hear her. Can't hear you.
That's right.
Cannot hear you.
Hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I think it was really good at the end that you just said what the movie was, because I think lots of people didn't watch the movie again. So maybe, Saloni, you want to summarize the movie when they're back? Just for those.
Rand, can you do that? Because I've forgotten what the movie
Yeah, it's fine. I watched it. I watched it an hour before. Maybe I should have summarized the movie before chucking them into the rooms, no?
No, but that's good.
No, yeah, what? I don't, Sal, you're damn scary. I don't think they'd read the paper or watched the movie.
No, they've not done anything, which actually I'm a little pissed off at.
Yeah, I mean, they should.
No, they should. Yeah.
No, they shouldn't. I think this is a free course. They come, they do what they can. We can't be like forceful. Saloni already is for her self-respect, and that's great. But I think we can't send out emails saying, why haven't you done this? No course next time, you know? I think they're doing great. But Reki, don't worry. Guys, otherwise Reki's going to pound them.
Okay, no. So I just feel bad. So maybe the only thing to counter this is like when you guys come in to talk about a paper or a film.
Yeah, summarize it.
For her to edit. Would that be okay? What do you guys think? I stopped recording, Reki, because it's our discussion.
Oh, okay.
Should I say it's 2 minutes? I can send an announcement.
Yeah, Ranj, but we have some participants coming back now itself.
How are you, Adnan?
It shows his there. Adnan?
One more minute.
You're
to go.
muted.
Can we end the breakout rooms ourselves, or do you have to exit it?
No, once we close all rooms, they get ejected into the main thread.
Ranjini, just make sure when you say end breakout rooms, you don't say end meeting.
No, here it says
Yeah,
close.
don't end the meeting.
They say close all rooms. I'm going to close all rooms.
Okay.
Okay. It will take then a minute, Ranjini, before it will close. It gives them a buffer.
Okay.
Just don't say close, and start pressing everything that says close.
No, I've said close, and it's going to close in 60 seconds.
I'm sure Justine has done this at some meeting secretly,
Yeah.
where she closed everything and ended the meeting.
Speaking from experience.
Yeah.
It's terrible. God.
Cool. People are coming back, I think.
Ranj, you'll announce the group leader's name?
Yeah, I had announced it.
No, when they, I mean now, like,
Oh, yeah,
who's going to speak?
I think Aliana, Choki, Jen, and Danielle.
Oh, cool. Everyone's back. Hi, everybody. It's a little bit of a shock, I think, all the time coming. Yeah, exactly. It's so abrupt. You're like in the meeting, and then suddenly you're like, oh my God, what happened? So I hope all of you had a good discussion. And quickly, I mean, just a brief overview of the film that we had seen. It was, I don't know how many of you watched the film, but if you haven't had time to watch it, we'd recommend watching it by today, because we'll have to pull it down by the end of today. So early tomorrow morning, we're going to have to pull the film down, because the filmmaker's given us permission for just a short while to be able to put it up. So the film was shot by this person called Tenzin Gyab. And Tenzin's a filmmaker from Ladakh. So he was actually born and brought up in Ladakh from snow leopard landscapes, and he's gone on to become a very famous filmmaker. He's won several awards. So this film that we put up today, it's called Shepherdess of the Glaciers, and he essentially follows his sister, and she's one of the last shepherdesses from their village, and he follows her while she's herding. And there are several. One of the reasons, yes, she's a sister. So one of the reasons that we put it up was because we thought there were many interesting themes that come out through this, right? So one, for example, yes, of course, the obvious one is her relationship with the landscape, her relationship with the animals, and how she's interacting with the landscape. The other theme that we thought was super interesting, at least what I found fascinating, was, I thought her relationship with the animals also were very intimate, right? Because she's she's building these bridges, so you can almost understand. And in the end, when she comes back and she talks about some of the animals that have died, and and she's so emotional about it, and there's so much pain. So there's a lot of these emotional connections that she's forming with her animals, and it's just her and the animals for 5-6 months at a stretch during the winter, where the radio is her only friend. She's like, the radio is all I have, but otherwise it's just her and her animals. So the kind of bond that forms there is so, so deep. And I'm not sure if any of you have pets, but if some of you have pets, I think it kind of gives us an understanding of the depth of these relationships that can form. And sometimes, at least for me, when I first started out as a conservationist, we forget about these emotional ties that people have with their landscape, because what we're thinking of and what our focus as often as ecologists, as conservationists, is on the snow leopard. Right? So we're just like, oh my God, the snow leopard got killed, the snow leopard this, and you're upset. But the reasons for behind that depredation, one of course is economic loss, and economic loss in this landscape is massive because people here are very, very poor, and when depredation happens, they go below poverty, like most of us know. But the backstory also is there's a huge emotional cost that comes with it, right? So imagine in the woman in this film, she's brought up these these little kids, the goat kids, since they were born, and she's carried them on her shoulder, she's with them 24/7, and then when they get killed, that's also an emotional loss that happens. There's a lot of stress around it. So I thought that connection for me was really important with this film as well. And in addition to that, I think there were hints of management that happens in the landscape, because she talks about how there's going to be a fine if she doesn't leave from one pasture at a certain time, and they have to go to another pasture where the winter pastures are, where the summer pastures are. So these themes of management of the landscape also come into place. In addition to that, there's also these stories of her using the plants, using the medicinal plants, the umpties having to collect it. So that's in summary, that's what the film is about, where he just follows the shepherdess, across, almost a year, primarily during the winter months, as she's herding the village's livestock. So we were just interested in knowing what, the discussion that happened and came out of your groups. Aliana, do you want to go first from group 1?
Sure. So I guess you kind of touched on pretty much every single point that we also brought up, about just kind of getting the real feel of the isolation and loneliness that she is going through in these 5 or 6 months by herself in the wilderness in the winter, with only her animals and the radio to keep her company. And what you said about her radio being her most prized possession, and how if it were to die, it would just be awful. And kind of, also like how these really deep bonds that she forms with her animals, and they're basically her family. And at the end, where she's talking about how many she's lost, and she starts tearing up, and it was just like, like she's lost her children. But at the same time, I thought it was interesting in this really harsh environment and losing these animals that are so dear to her, how she doesn't seem to have animosity or hatred towards the environment itself, but also towards the carnivores. And she's like, I don't want my animals to die, but I also respect the environment, and I'm going to do my best to protect them, and I'm going to do my best to make sure nothing bad happens, but I'm also not angry towards these things that happen. It's just, it's part of being here. Just kind of her acceptance of that, I thought was interesting. It also kind of reminded me, if anyone, people who are in the community conservation group or workshop last time, there was that case study about the lady who was by herself, lived alone, and she had the guarding dog that stayed outside of her house, and how it was killed by a snow leopard, and just how she refused to talk to anyone because she lost her only companion. It was kind of similar, I thought. And then we also kind of talked about how it'd be interesting to do a similar documentary in like another area, another region, and we specifically talked about Iran, and how the differences between the different areas, the different landscapes, the different cultures and religions, but the same work, shepherding work, especially female shepherding work, and how it could be similar or different based on these different areas and different contexts for a female shepherd.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Aliana. Fantastic points. I completely agree with you as well. And interestingly, like what you were saying as well, like one of the points was, you know, about how this can also shepherding in some sense. There's this nostalgia that comes through the film as well, right? Like it's not being done so much anymore. The livestock are reducing. Maybe this knowledge transfer is also going to go down. And, you know, that entire sense of nostalgia is also, there's that vein that's running through the film as well. So it'll
Yeah.
be fascinating. Sorry?
Oh yeah, I was just agreeing. Kind of her sadness about having no one interested in following in her footsteps, and she's like, I'm getting older, and I don't know who's going to do this after me. I don't know what's going to happen to this line of work.
Yeah, exactly. So those are also fascinating. Like this transfer of knowledge almost is going to die out with these last shepherdesses. And the other point that you mentioned, which was very fascinating, was again, you know, how she views herself and the animals and the mountains. And, you know, like you're saying, there's no animosity towards the snow leopard, but instead she says about how all of us are animals as well. And she's like, if you look at the snow leopard, or the lynx, you can see them, you can hear them. She understands them as well. So they're just like, it's just part of the experience, right? This might happen, that might happen. So yeah, thanks so much, Aliana, for sharing from your group. So the group breakout room 2, was it Karan who was in charge? Was it?
It's me,
Was
Choki.
Karan
I think
yeah,
Choki.
Thank you very much for the time. From our group, we are from group 2, and we first discussed about the movie, and we really like the movie, and we are stuck about like how intimate relationship that the sister of Tanzi, you know, she has with her sheep, as she even know the expression of the sheep, and she knows each and every one of them, and she react to them, and how she loved them. And she also connected with the religious philosophy as well, like she feel like they are like reincarnated and like a sister to her, and how she is connected to them. And in the same way, our group also talk about like how in the movie show like the period of grazing, you know, like time of grazing, like in a certain place and valley, specific valley, and how like challenging it is for the shepherd when she goes a year around, you know, when she moves because of heavy snowfall, and the livestock dies, and these all are challenges that she needs to like have to face. And other than that, we also discuss about like research from our group member, you know, experience, research experience that they have done. Like one of our member have done like a research, like a project to understand human wildlife conflict. And like from their research, they understood like the main reason for the mortality of livestock was like disease, not to the carnivore, but the local people are really sensitive towards their livestock. They really love them, you know. They have very less tolerant towards their livestock being killed. So they don't tolerate much, but they did quantitative research, and they find out that it is the livestock are dead more to disease than to carnivore. And they explain to the local like this is how the attitude of the local are, you know. This can be really important, like issues to understand their behavior, attitude in that way, in terms of like how social research can be important and vital in this context. In the same way, like our other member also shared about her like research in eastern part of Nepal, where when they try to do research and with very limited information, and they went to the area, and there they found only one herd, you know. Because of transhumant, they all moved out, and only one group of sheep herd was there, and it was really discouraging. So they find out that, you know, they realize like we should do pre-research and get more information before going and like understand their context before doing and going practically in that area. And this much I find very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Choki, for sharing from your group. And that's been really interesting. Can we, who was in group 3?
I was.
Daniel.
Daniel, would you like to
Yeah.
share?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. We mainly talked about the implication of social science in this case, and we talked about the application of the different aspects of social science. So we talked about the importance of acknowledging the psychological and social features such as norms and belief, perception, attitudes, and these type of factors of local people and also herders, to be more specific. And and also how can we gain some invaluable experiences of these local people, because they are the one that who spend most of their time in nature, certainly more than us as biologists. And actually, we brought up that we have taken biology into account more than social aspects, and it is not good. We have to uh, also concentrate on the social aspects. And also, we discussed about the priority of education and educating local people and the local children, and in addition to the raising awareness. And because some local people and local children don't even have a basic education. So yeah, preparing the education for them is also necessary. And also educating ourselves about the challenges and the society that we are working with, about the challenges, about the restrictions, and how can we, aid and help them with their needs. And what else? The point that without understanding the culture of a society, we cannot conserve our species of interest there. So yeah, that's it. We talked about this.
Thanks so much for the wonderful summary, Daniel, and for the excellent points that you guys have brought up. Maybe we'll move on to the last group. Jen, I think, was the leader of the last group. Jen?
Yes. In my group, we sadly ran out of time for everyone. I was not a good timekeeper, but we sort of summarized the film, and then we had some sharing of different experiences, and I think the commonalities were that both in Afghanistan and in some of the villages in India where the different colleagues work, they're seeing that when snow leopards are killing in a corral, they're killing many, if not all, of the sheep and goats in there, and that it can be extremely devastating and emotional. We talked a lot about the emotion of that for herders and some of the experiences that they've seen, that a wolf might kill more over time than what a snow leopard does, but that often a snow leopard will kill so many at once in a corral that it's just devastating and extremely emotional from their experiences, which led to a discussion about the importance of some of the solutions that can be offered, that came compensation and upgrading the corral. I think I also wanted to add that I think that one of the things that struck me was just, if you just told the story, the facts of loss and depredation without seeing the film, I think we can think of solutions, right? But I think for me, when you see the emotion of the film, it also just makes the important piece of just letting that person share the story and saying, I'm sorry that happened, right? If we had a loss, you know, Ranjini, you mentioned a pet, you know, if you lost your pet, there would be lots of people saying to you, oh, I'm so sorry, right? Not jumping to solutions for you, like right away, of like, oh, just get another one, right? We'll get you another one, right? It would be lots of just I'm sorry's and experiencing and letting us all share in the loss of that for a bit. And I think that really struck me, like when you really see the loss and the emotion and the feeling of just taking a minute to allow that space and to realize how emotional and personal these losses are.
Thanks so much for sharing, Jen. You're very right. You know, that's a fantastic point that, you know, we just jump into offering solutions without even acknowledging their pain and acknowledging that the pain often is very personal. So thank you so much for sharing these excellent points to all the groups. And I think in the chat, Aliana has also said, yeah, it's interesting about education as well, right? Like they're talking about, you know, what are the different kinds of dresses in India? What are the different kinds of, you know, whatever, but they're not represented at all. And she's like, do they talk about shepherdesses? And they're like, no, it's not in this book. And I found that really heartbreaking because that's one of the things that we talk about in India a lot, you know, because India is so diverse. And places like Spiti and Ladakh, which are far away, remote, most people in India don't even know they exist. And they're never represented in any of the textbooks, their wildlife, even people, culture. It's not represented at all. So in some senses, this entire thing of nostalgia, they are the last keepers of their tradition in that sense, because it's not shared. You know, so yeah, so these are important points as well. Aliana has brought up in the discussion. So I guess one of the interesting things about this film was that it shifts the focus, like for us as conservationists, very often we look at wildlife, but here we're shifting the focus onto people who are part of it. So I'm just going to hand it over to Saloni.
Thanks, Ranj. This was really interesting and exciting for me, and the points you guys raised were amazing, really. Some of it I might not have observed myself, but it was really nice to speak to all of you about it. Well, we will end the session today. And just to kind of recap, we spoke about, we did the introductions and then the poll, and then we spoke about what comprises social research, why we do social research. Then we spoke a little bit about the film, a lot about the film actually. You guys shared some wonderful field experiences. I'm sorry we couldn't accommodate all of them, but we have 3 more sessions. And it's been really exciting to speak to all of you and interact with all of you and get to know what you think about different things. Are there any kind of parting words? Would you guys like to share something? Any comments, observations, feedback? If you're going too slow, fast, if it's too basic, if it's too much, please let us know so we can iterate accordingly. We have 2-3 minutes and then we'll have to end this call.
I was thinking, maybe we could just sum up, Sal, with giving an idea of what the next few courses are. And we kind of based it on some of the responses that we got, like as to why people were attending. But we're willing and we're really open to even change it according to what people might feel better or more comfortable with, because we don't want to pitch it at a level that you might find too basic or at a level that you might find too high. We want to pitch it so that it's beneficial for everyone. So what we were thinking was that the next session, we'll start looking at research questions. Like how do you ask research questions? What are the kind of research questions you're going to be asking, and research methodology, right? So like different kinds of research methodology. So we'll go into that, and we're going to have case studies for that. So the idea that we had was, everyone's probably familiar with trophy hunting, because I know that's something that's been coming up a lot in some of the other sessions as well. So we thought we would go over the different aspects of trophy hunting and use trophy hunting as like case studies to move forward, with asking, doing the questionnaires, with doing the research questions, the study design. So the next session will be study design and research methodology. After that, we're going to have, we're just going to be looking at questionnaires. So that's both structured and semi-structured and unstructured questions, like, you know, how do you phrase the questions, all of that, but also ethics. So we also cover ethics of, you know, doing social research. And finally, the last session we're going to be looking at is data analysis. So we'll also look into coding. So we're going to be looking at both structured questionnaires and also unstructured. So unstructured, we'll get into coding, but also looking at some of the softwares you can use, like NVivo or Target or things like that for coding and unstructured. So that is the idea that we had. But if you feel, you know, that you want to go, so what we thought is we'll go in depth into questionnaires and semi-structured interviews and do that well. But if you feel that we'd rather go broad, which is look at different methodologies in social sciences and not go deep, also do let us know, you know, so that we can do it accordingly as well. So that's what we thought moving forward. And we thought we'd center most of this around trophy hunting, so that the questions that you come up, so because it's easier to do it with a case study in mind, right? So we thought it might be interesting to do it with trophy hunting in mind. But yeah, if you guys have feedback or comments or thoughts, please do let us know, write in on the group or even write to Raki.
Daniel has a comment for you.
Daniel, next one. Quantitative. Yeah.
And Jennifer says, how about both? So 8 weeks. Sounds fun.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, maybe like we can see how it goes, and if there's interest, the next one we can do other methods, because social sciences is so broad, you know, it's everything. Like it's economics, it's everything, you know, that we're going to be looking at. So it's quite very broad. So that's why we thought we'd focus on just this methodology. But and what the reason we're also focusing on semi-structured and structured interviews is that's what all of us used the most very often, you know. So we thought, okay, let's just look at that. But yeah, we're welcome to suggestions and comments, feedback.
Yeah, if you guys have any particular questions for Ranjini and Saloni, please do write to them in the group chat and they can get back to you. If you want it just to go directly to them, send it to me and I'll send it to them. Sorry,
Rats. If you need, you know, some reference material for different kinds of methods that we don't cover in this course, please do write to us and we'll see how we can help you with that. Or if you need any kind of advice regarding your research and stuff like that. So this is a very broad level course, and then perhaps, you know, depending on the interest, we can have more specific modules for interested folks.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, I think
we're also happy to help with your own study design, and you know, if there are any questions related to your field work and your social science methodology questions, all of that, we're happy to help with that. If you want us to look at your questionnaire surveys, things like that.
Yes, Helen Newing's book, as Nelofa mentions, is great starter, and we have a soft copy of the book. Kindly don't circulate it outside the group. We'll share it with you.